Hello there, and welcome back to A Star Wars Story. I am so excited to share with you my review of the 2-episode series premiere of Ahsoka. I was fortunate enough to attend the fan screening, and to be honest, I am very overwhelmed. It's been a 15-year journey to see Ahsoka's debut in the Clone Wars theatrical film, her journey through the animated series, her continued journey through Rebels, then to see the revitalization of the Clone Wars for one final season, and to see her story come together, her live-action debut in Mandalorian, her continued journey in live-action in the Book of Boba Fett, and now she's headlining her own series. It's really been an incredible journey for a character that was derided by a vocal minority of the fan base 15 years ago. I've loved Clone Wars and I loved its debut. I've been watching Clone Wars since the birth of my daughter, and this is a show and this is a character that she has grown up with. This is her Star Wars. Ahsoka was her focal point character. And so there is a personal attachment to this journey, but I think that's true for any Star Wars fan. And for anyone who really celebrates fandom or who has a passionate love of something specific or some specific IP or franchise. For me, it's Star Wars. I've grown up with Star Wars, and Star Wars has been a part of my life for over 30 years, from when Legends was the expanded universe. I was a fan of Star Wars before the prequels came out. So this is a long road, and we're all going to approach fandom differently, and we're all going to have different entry points. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean one is a lesser Star Wars fan. You kind of can't help that you weren't born in, 76, or, well, to be of age to see it in 77, that you weren't born in around 1970. You know what I'm saying? You can't help that. You can't control it. We're all legitimate Star Wars fans. We all have different entry points into this saga, and we're all going to relate to these characters very differently. And that leads me to my spoiler-free review and how I'm approaching my spoiler-free approach to this Ahsoka review. Now, we are days away from the 2-episode premiere. It is not my place to ruin that experience for anybody who doesn't want it ruined. So when I say a spoiler-free review, I mean we're not going to talk about plot points. We're not going to talk about characters that appear. We're not going to talk about characters that die. We're not going to talk about cameos or references. And we're not going to be vague and tease it either, like, oh, I can't wait for you to see that there's a character coming. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do any of that because our levels of fandom means that a reference that I will catch, you might not catch if you didn't read a certain expanded universe book. It might not mean anything to you. Seeing something might not mean anything to you like it would for me. The same goes for whether or not you watched the cartoons. Having something referenced or seeing a character make their live action debut won't mean something for you if you weren't watching it when it was a cartoon and you have an attachment or a emotional reaction to it. So there's no reason to set that up or to tease it. So to be as vague as possible and to be very careful, I'm only going to acknowledge the characters that the trailers have pretty much revealed, which is Ahsoka, Professor Hang, which I'm always going to pronounce that wrong, Sabine, Hera. We know about Baylan, we know about Shin. I'm going to be very careful in talking about the villains and talking about Merrick and Morgan just because of how they tie into the plot. But in terms of our heroes and in terms of what they represent, I will use their names, but I'm not going to talk about the plot, and I'm not going to talk about some of the connective tissue. So you're completely safe. This is very much so a spoiler-free review of the 2-episode premiere. Episode 1 was written and directed by Dave Filoni, and Episode 2 was written by Dave Filoni and directed by Steph Green. You may know Steph Green as the director of the 2nd episode of the Book of Boba Fett, the train episode. Really, really well done. They are both incredibly talented directors, and just to speak on their directorial approach and to see Dave Filoni headlining a series, I wanted to take a minute to just talk about Dave Filoni. I've had the pleasure of meeting him. He's an incredible person. He is passionate about Star Wars. He loves Star Wars. And you can see that he took the lessons that George Lucas taught him and that he has carried it with him throughout his professional career. The relationship between George Lucas and Dave Filoni is very much so that of a master and apprentice. It is easy to equate their relationship to a line of Jedi that started with Yoda to Dooku to Qui-Gon Jinn to Obi-Wan Kenobi to Anakin Skywalker and then to Ahsoka. George Lucas, as I'm sure many of you know, was inspired by a number of directors, including the work of Akira Kurosawa, and he applied that inspiration to his own work when he was creating the 6 Star Wars films. And as he took Dave Filoni under his wing, Dave Filoni learned Lucas's approach to filmmaking. And we saw Filoni apply that throughout his career, into Rebels, into Resistance, into Bad Batch, into the live-action work of The Mandalorian. But more than that, we've also seen Filoni surround himself and work with a number of incredibly talented directors and take what they've told him to heart as well. Jon Favreau, Bryce Dallas Howard, Steph Green even. These are all talented, creative, passionate people. And we can see how they've left a mark on Filoni, but then how Filoni is also crafting and coming into his own and how he's maturing as a director. The work on Ahsoka, his debut episode on Ahsoka, the series premiere, is the work of a confident and strong filmmaker, an individual with a vision. You can see the inspirations from the people he worked with, but you can see his own distinct style as well. And honestly, if I may, it is nostalgic. There is an art of filmmaking that has been lost. Modern films, they are not cut, they're not edited the same way as older films were. And you can see that through Star Wars. You can see how the work of George Lucas takes its time, approaches choreography differently, frames fights differently. That is an approach that Filoni has continued. And there is a sequence in the first episode that is so beautifully executed, that is so brilliantly done and so engaging that the entire crowd erupted in applause at its conclusion. It was just that well done. And then if you look at the work of Filoni and what he did with that first episode, you can see how he set a standard that was followed through with the succeeding directors. Now, obviously, I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but I imagine this is probably going to hold true. Steph Green does an amazing job with her episode. She has a smaller runtime, but that is no less impactful. It is a strong, powerful episode with another really engaging, thrilling sequence that the audience erupted in. There are great moments throughout this show visually. It is a beautiful show. It is shot wonderfully, and it feels like Star Wars. It is shot like Star Wars, if that makes any sense. Then we have to look at narratively. How do we approach this story that is a sequel to 15 years of content, or if you want to go even further, nearly 50 years of content, because A New Hope is approaching its 50th anniversary? We've been on this Star Wars road for a long time, and a question will come up: can I just jump in and watch it? Can I just show this to someone? The easy answer is that yes. You can jump into Ahsoka without even having seen her live-action debut or her animated debut. You can jump into this show and understand full well the characters that make this up and their motivation. Whether it is Ahsoka, Hera, Sabine, or Professor Huang. Again, probably really butchering that pronunciation. But they're all very clearly identified, and your relationship with them, even within this short amount of time, I think, and I truly believe this, that audiences who don't know these characters from animation will walk away feeling the same way about them as those of us who have followed their journey for 15 or 10 years, however long you've been on this ride. It does so well in terms of the economy of storytelling and how they introduce it, because this is a show that does not hold your hand. It does not coddle the audience, and it doesn't treat you like you are a fool or like you are stupid. But it also doesn't hinge on a bunch of callbacks or exposition dumps. These characters behave like real characters. The story is driven forward. There is momentum throughout. It moves forward. It progresses. You know the relationship. You understand their interpersonal relationships, and there is a strength to that, and there is a confidence in this storytelling. And again, with Disney Plus, if you are excited by what you've seen after these first 2 episodes, you can easily go back and see their journey and see where it's been. You can take peeks into parts of their lives. You can check out episodes and see what has gone on. But you do not need to have seen any of it. And again, that even goes for Ahsoka's appearances in the live-action Mandalorian series. You are fine starting here. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Narratively, this is a confident filmmaker who loves Star Wars, who is passionate about it, and again, who understands the thematic elements that George Lucas was building across his saga, and how George Lucas used the economy of storytelling in a 2-hour film to get that point across and to tell a story. And you can see that, again, you can see those lessons on display here. Really wonderfully done. Now, when the show starts, there is, I'm going to be careful here, there is an eeriness, and there is, it's almost unsettling, and there is a sadness. And again, if you know where these characters are coming from and their journey in Rebels, which was very tense and dramatic to where they are now, you can understand where they are starting their journey at and why they're starting it the way that they're starting it. There's been a lot of loss for these characters, whether it's Ahsoka, Sabine, or Hera. There's been a lot of loss. If you know what that loss is, then it will resonate with you differently. But even just coming into it, you understand that there's been a lot of loss. Again, being as careful as possible in terms of what you can digest. I assume many of you here know what I'm referring to, but I will leave that at your own discretion. The music equally is sparse and eerie. It is a haunting score built around these first 2 episodes. And again, when you see how it plays out thematically, you can see and understand the maturity of what the Kiner brothers have done with this. And yet again, how they take the inspiration from John Williams and again, lessons from Williams and lessons from other composers, and how they're applying it and how they're maturing and how they're identifying their own style. Everyone here is working and bringing their passion, their professionalism, and their highest quality work. Honestly, it is the best I've ever seen. Just in terms of the visual effects and the work that's done with the volume, there is yet again an evolution and maturity to the work that's being done, and how they are learning every day new techniques and how to improve the volume. It is very much so incredible. It is a technical spectacle. It really is impressive. I was so excited coming out of the screening. Everyone was talking. It was really exciting to connect with other fans. I loved the atmosphere around it. I loved that the audience reacted to these moments, because I wanted to react to these moments, and it's great to see that and to have that connection. It's just like sitting around the sofa and getting excited as these episodes premiere. I go back to the debut of Ahsoka or Luke in the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. It was so powerful. And just being around the sofa and having that reaction even with my family, it's great to see that expanded in this big theater showing. And what an amazing display of the work of Filoni and Steph Green. This earned it on the big screen. This was a cinematic experience. It was so powerful, so wonderfully done. I can do nothing but gush about it. I love it. I truly love the work that they've done with these first 2 episodes. Now, like I said, it does not hold your hand. Ahsoka is a step in the narrative. These are 2 episodes out of 8. There are questions that are going to be lingering. There are plot points and developments that have me very excited and very curious what the answers are going to be. But again, we have to wait for them. This is an 8-episode series that's also potentially leading into a second season and then a movie. I don't expect everything to be answered, but they're clearly setting the stage. And because of the maturity, because of the passion, because of the way they've told the story in these 2 episodes, I am confident. And that is the best thing you can be when you're watching something. You know, you want to experience joy. You want to be confident coming out of this, like that these people and this crew and this team know what they're doing. And that's how I felt leaving this experience. A confidence and an understanding that I'm in good hands. And this is going to be an exciting next few weeks. And it's going to be a really good time. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, the Force will be with you always.